I was not paid to make this video, nor was I paid to promote any products, but I would like to thank Nick Obi and Axis Foils for loaning me their 1020 demo so I could make this video. This is the Axis 1020. The Axis 1020 is a popular wing, though I only recently had the chance to ride it. It's the largest wing in the Axis family by far. At 2051 square centimeters and 102 centimeters of wingspan, it's a mid-aspect ratio wing at 5.1. In this product review, we will compare the Axis 1020 to another popular Axis wing, the Axis 1150. This has been one of my favorites. The 1020 has 15% more area than the 1150. But the Axis 1020 has a smaller wingspan and thus a much lower aspect ratio. Recently I had the chance to fly a new wing from Starboard Foils called the S-Type 2400. This is a larger area wing than the Axis 1020. In fact, it's the largest wing I've ever flown. And it also has a double concave shape with significant downward wingtips. The S-Type 2400 from Starboard is a low aspect ratio wing at 4.2. We wanted to see how these wings performed in terms of pumping speed, gliding distance, and carving capability, so we took the wings to the bungee and put them through their paces on the test course. Given the S2400 is a much larger wing, I expected it to be slower due to more drag, but these two wings had similar pumping speeds. I found that the 1020 glided further. Perhaps the higher aspect ratio and lower area resulted in less drag and longer glide. The Axis 1150 has less area and is a higher aspect ratio wing. Both of those factors should result in lower drag and higher pumping speed, which I found to be the case. The Axis 1150 had a higher pumping speed than the Axis 1020. Similarly, I would have expected the Axis 1150 to glide further, and it did. After launching from the bungee, I like to circle the buoy twice, first with it on the inside of me, then with it on the outside of me, before returning to my dock. I do this to test the pumping capability of the wing during these turns in both directions. My speed during this test is similar, as is my pumping cadence, which is how many pumps I complete per second. One thing you cannot see is my level of energy. I was noticeably more tired after completing this test with the Axis 1020. The Axis 1150 is a high aspect ratio wing at 7.4, meaning its wingspan is 7.4 times longer than its average chord. It has a 30% higher aspect ratio than the 1020. High aspect ratio wings have higher lift slopes, which means the lift increases more when the angle of attack increases than it does for a lower aspect ratio wing. The 1150 might only need to move a few degrees during the pump, while the 1020 needs to move more. If the board doesn't have to move up and down as much, there is less energy lost to the board swinging in the air. And over a long period of time, the 1150 just doesn't need as much energy to pump. At 102 centimeters, I found this wing easy to carve. I found the Starboard 2400 easier to carve even though it was larger area because it has wingtips pointed down and a small rolling action really helped initiate the carve. One of my favorite tests is to see if a wing can surf the second wake. I like to see if a wing has enough lift to surf the second wake without pumping. This matters to those who will be surfing behind a personal watercraft like me or smaller vessels like bass boats or ski boats. I expected the 1020 to have enough area to do this, but it didn't. Perhaps the lower aspect ratio and larger area were just too much drag and I slowed down too much, drifting away from the sweet spot of the wake. I have performed this test on 10 different wings that I've reviewed, and I have been unable to surf the second wake on any of these 10 wings without pumping. The Axis 1150 is the only wing that I've been able to surf the second wake without pumping. The Axis 1150 has 15% less area than the 1020. Why can I surf the second wake with the Axis 1150? I believe it comes down to two things. The first is the foil section for the 1150 could have a better lift to drag ratio. And the second is the higher aspect ratio, which we know generates more lift and has lower drag. The Axis 1020 was easy to pump, but it did take more energy than the 1150. When trying to accelerate from the second wake to the first wake, I found that I was unable to reach the first wake. Perhaps the higher drag just didn't allow me to catch up to the vessel. The Axis 1020 has a 102 centimeter wingspan, which is smaller than I'm used to carving. Thus I found it somewhat easier and comfortable to pump during the turn. I rarely use a foil at higher than 9 miles per hour or 14 kilometers per hour, but I know those who wing reach speeds much higher than that. In this test, we increased the speed of the Wave Runner to as high as 13 miles per hour or 21 kilometers per hour. As the speed increases, the lift force on the hydrofoil increases by the square of the speed. So at these high speeds, there's a lot of lift, and I find that I need to pitch the nose down significantly to unload the foil on these larger wings. I wanted to compare the dock starting ability of the Axis 1150 and 1020. High aspect wings are hard to dock start because they have a higher lift slope, meaning there's a large change in lift force for a small change in angle of attack. So you need to land at the right angle of attack or quickly adjust your angle once you land. I also find that a longer fuselage and larger rear wing provide more pitch control and stability, so you don't have to precisely land in the right spot on the board with the right weight distribution. I'm not that good at dock starting. I did find the Axis 1020 very forgiving, and it dock started during my first and only attempt, even when I touched the water. The Axis 1020 is a nice mid-aspect ratio wing. I found that it took more energy to pump than the higher aspect ratio wings I'm used to, like the 1150. It simply has more drag and requires more input energy to pump. The 1020 was the easiest wing I've ever dock started. I'm not a proficient dock starter, but I think I could become one with the Axis 1020. The 1020 is a good wing for surfing small wakes. There's a lot of lift even at low speeds. I'd recommend this wing for beginners, particularly those over 180 pounds or 80 kilos. For intermediate riders seeking to become advanced, I'm a fan of the 1150. This wing unlocks long distance pumping, excellent gliding performance, and great surfing, even on the smallest of wakes. And for those reasons, it's still my favorite wing for the lake.